Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to this live chat. My name is Satish Kasturi. I head the business practice for trust and safety for TechM. Um Today we have a elite list of panelists. We will talk about employee wellness and how it impacts in the Vuca world. And before we get too much into the context, I wanted to tell you what Vuca world is all about. Some of you may already be aware. Volatile, uncertain, uh, complex, and ambiguous. And this certainly has a lot of, impact in the way that we are stressed through the day, through the routines that we have. And one of the key things that it impacts is the people who are moderating for the trust and safety practice, and they are the ones who are most impacted. Their line managers are more impacted. And how do we help them bridge the gap between where they need to be in terms of performance, and how they are able to be resilient through all the difficult work that they're doing in keeping the online space safe. Without much ado, I would like to invite the panelists who will discuss on varied topics. We will touch upon some of the things that we are hearing from clients, uh, and we will hear from what are the best practices in trust and safety space, especially as it concerns with CSAM. And we will also touch upon some of the wellness practices that we have within TechM, and we will round it off by talking about the investments that we are making in the space. So I would like to invite the speakers on this call. First of all, the lady here, Meghna Harindran. She is the wellness officer at Tech Mahindra. Welcome, Meghna. We
Thank you,
have
Satish.
we have Manish Samdarshi. He is a managing partner
Thank you.
at
For some
Ali.
reason, I couldn't hear Satish. If somebody can cue me when to start, I can. Sorry about that. Looks like there
Yeah,
is some technical difficulty in me hearing Satish.
sure, Mahesh. Um, so Manish Samdarshi is the managing partner at alias.com, which was acquired by Tech Mahindra a few months back.
Hi there,
Welcome, Manish.
everyone.
Mahesh Iyer is the senior vice president based in San Francisco. He heads our business in the Bay Area. And we have Bharat Vasudevan, who is the chief capability officer for TechM BPS. Uh, Let me first ask, Mahesh Iyer to talk about, some of the things that the clients are saying about, wellness and how it impacts business. Over to you, Manish. Mahesh.
Sure. Was there a question for me? Sorry, I couldn't hear Satish.
Yeah, go ahead, Mahesh.
You guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So thank you very much, Satish. Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I know it's getting a little late in Asia Pacific. But thank you very much for the folks joining this session across the globe. Satish, before I answer your question, I want to take a step back and giving a context in terms of the nuances behind the trust and safety operations. Today, if you look at over trillions of bytes of data are posted on social media every day across the globe. Now, the quality and type of such content that's been posted has a combination of both egregious and what we call the non-egregious content. These are all user-generated data, includes a large amount of hate speech, violence, if I will, strong political views, child abuse, crime against women, so on and so forth. With the proliferation of such contents, it is becoming increasingly challenging for our clients to moderate and stop this before it goes viral. right? So many of our clients have indeed developed very strong AIML algorithm and protocols to automatically tag these contents as and when they appear. But these advanced technologies are still not fully geared to handle the volume and the type of content being posted. Uh, while the mission is able to tag roughly around 85% of the content automatically, the 15% still needs human intervention. And this translates to tens and thousands of people manually moderating this content globally. While more and more people are involved in manually tagging and moderating this content, they are constantly exposed to strong and violent contents every day, if you can imagine. Over time, such exposure results in affecting their both psychological and physiological well-being, resulting in health issues, directly affecting the overall effectiveness of the program itself. Therefore, maintaining employee wellness becomes a crucial aspect for organization involved in content moderation process. Now, coming to answering your question in terms of what clients are specifically asking supplier like us when it comes to being successfully running content moderation program, we can group their expectation largely under three buckets. We call it as ACE. Uh, the A stands for accuracy and quality. Suppliers must ensure that the content that they are moderating meets at least 99.5% of the quality standards. Now, this becomes very, very crucial because we don't want any inappropriate content to go viral and affect the overall trust and safety of the brand as well as people who are using that. Now, secondly, the humans are also training the missions in parallel. If there is a lacuna in the quality, the mission also gets it wrong, fundamentally collapsing the whole ecosystem. So accuracy becomes very, very crucial aspect in the content moderation world. The second important expectation is continuous improvement, like any other process. Clients expect us to continuously improve effectiveness and efficiency of the program over time. Our ability to look for areas to automate, our ability to look for process engineering, our ability to eliminate processes that are redundant, therefore affecting the overall efficacy of the program positively. So net, the benefit of it this is improve the effectiveness and lower the cost simultaneously. Last but not the least is the overall employee wellness. This is the third and the most important aspect in the overall ask, and it has the most weightage among the other two. And the companies are increasingly getting more serious about employee stress, especially due to certain contents of digital job that they're undergoing. According to Harvard Business Review, two-thirds of the organizations today have a wellness officer in place. And the expenditure, the spending on wellness is expected to grow 8% year on year, which is pretty significant. Companies with mature and focused employee wellness initiatives are able to deliver high quality outcomes, continue to improve operational parameters, retain talent, perform exceptionally well in the content moderation space. Now, when it comes to TechM, we have invested very heavily on employee wellness programs, especially on the content moderation space. We have recently acquired a company called MatPow, who specializes in building a framework to benefit the psychological and physiological health of the employees working in the organization. Now, with that synergy, we have developed a PHQ-9 screening process, which I think Megha will cover in her session, which emphasizes on how do I reduce stress of an individual working in the content moderation space. Our experience is by prolonged practice of this PHQ-9 screening, we're able to reduce the stress of an individual by 8 times and improve their overall resilience in the program. Now, to sum up, these are the three specific asks, right? So I hope I've answered your question, Satish. I'll pause here and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh. That was very insightful, and I think you laid out nicely how it is, across different kinds of streams of work, as well as how PSQ9 screening helps. Um Manish, I will move to Manish. Manish, in terms of your experience in this industry where you've been there for such a long time, what are some of the impact of this on BPO companies, especially? And is it important from employee wellness right now? If so, why do you think it is important?
See, thanks, Satish. I think wellness is becoming more and more important, and irrespective of the kind of companies. Within BPO companies, we do the kind of work that we do, and therefore wellness takes precedence. But overall, wellness is becoming extremely important across a spectrum of companies. One of the things that we have to take into account when we're talking about wellness and about the people who essentially touch the kind of content that Mahesh alluded to as far as trust and safety is concerned is that the material is very it's uncomfortable material, and therefore if wellness programs are not put in place, if wellness processes are not followed, then it creates a lot of issues, not just with the employees, but potentially also with the company and the customers that we work for. So, wellness is going to be extremely important as a way forward. The last 2 years of the pandemic, or maybe even more, because there are still some places that are dealing with the pandemic related issues, has taught us that wellness becomes further more important for all kinds of companies, not just BPO companies. I'll give you an example of that. A few years ago, um, so wellness overall, wellness is defined by various different organizations as into 5 or 7 or 8 different categories, depending upon who you talk to. There's environmental wellness, there is organizational wellness, there is intellectual wellness, there is social wellness, financial wellness, physical wellness, emotional wellness. So if you look at wellness overall, every employee in every company is asking for some aspect of all of that. And it just depends upon how you are able to provide that to the employees for them to be happy, productive, satisfied, and therefore do more for you as well as for the clients. The example I was mentioning was an example about physical wellness. It happened with Chipotle over in Princeton. um, Many companies in our, not in our industry, but many companies in the retail industry have different kinds of policies in place that do not allow our folks to take time off, for example. Just simple things. And this person came into work, he was ill, he brought norovirus with him to work that day, and it shut down Chipotle completely. Not only did it shut down Chipotle completely, it stopped people from going to Chipotle for a very long period of time, causing a massive drop in the valuation of the company. It was just a simple thing. This guy just couldn't stay at home simply because he wasn't going to get paid if he stayed at home. So wellness is a very big factor, and irrespective of industry, irrespective of company, irrespective of domain, it is going to be more and more important going forward.
Okay. Thanks for that, Manish. One other question that I had for you was, in the experience that you have had dealing with several kinds of customers, what are some of the key things from a BPO perspective that you have seen where customers wanted to understand, what are your wellness practices, and how much of importance are they placing on that?
So I'll give you another example of that one with this customer of ours. So this is a customer we are working with. We are actually going to get operations started with this customer in another 4 to 6 weeks. This customer is an established customer. They do stuffs in technology, gaming, things like that, and they already had a team in place that was doing moderation work for them. The reason they came to us was because they had experience with the wellness practices that we have in place in Arise. And our very first conversation that we had was about wellness. They said, I want to make sure that you have a proper wellness practice in place. So we said, okay, wellness can mean many things. What are you looking for? So we went into the details of, do you have counselors on board that we can talk to? Do you have morale events that you take care of? Do you have one-on-one sessions with the individuals who are working on this in different kinds of projects? Do you have work balancing? So if they are working on high impact projects, do they get shifted to low impact projects? And do you do that? How many hours do they work on a daily basis? Do they get time off to just de-stress? So these were very, very specific questions coming from them. And we said that we have quite a few of these things in place. We talked about it. We had them connected to some of our leads who are working on some of these projects, both on the extremely egregious side and the non so much egregious side. And it was after that that we started a conversation. And today we are at a point of time where in the next few weeks or so, we might actually get started on the project. Then this was one of the companies. The other company that we are still having a conversation with, and you might be aware of them as well, they are in the hyperlocal social media space. There also the questions were a lot about very detailed questions. So nowadays, to your point, Satish, a lot of companies that deal with content and they are talking about moderation start conversations with companies like us with moderation and wellness being the first drivers, not so much as how many places can you do this work out of, how cheap can you do this work out of, how quickly can you do this work out of. They are always a factor. But if you look at the top 5 factors, the first factor that they start with, tell me about your wellness program. So
Right.
that shows a huge shift in terms of how people are thinking, at least in this industry, on what is it that they can do about wellness. There was one of our team members over who works in this kind of an area. He was once mentioning to me that there was this one person who worked for him, an analyst. He came back and talked to him and he said, I can't watch these things anymore. The longer I watch it, the more influenced I am. So I can't watch it anymore. So I asked him, so what did you do? They said, well, we first of all took him off the floor. Then he spent time working with the counselors. He had some de-stressing time, completely separate from all the work that he was doing. And then slowly we brought him back into a lower impact work and then brought him back to the same body of work. So wellness is extremely important from the customer's perspective also. That is becoming the driver of many of such conversations.
Thank you so much, Manish. Before we go to Meghna, just wanted to let everybody know here that there is a Q&A session towards the end of this once the speakers have given their views. So you can start putting your questions in the comment section and we will take them as appropriate and respond to them. Coming to you, Meghna, from what Mahesh and Manish spoke about, how customers are looking for wellness. What are we doing at TechM? How are we approaching wellness? If you can, give us a little bit color of how your role is defined the course for TechM.
Right, right. Thank you, Satish, for that question. Firstly, I completely echo with what Manish and Mahesh had to say because, as we go through the challenges that the VUCA world is throwing at us, we also need to understand why people who are working in these use cases need the most support. Now, as the COVID pandemic hit us with a deluge of uncertainties, it actually gave people a reality check about their well being. For instance, during the first wave, when work from home became the new norm, we witnessed managers finding it difficult to manage their team's well being. Now, given that there was a pandemic in place and employees were stressed, it was absolutely essential for us to provide a positive work environment. Hence, we launched a program that helps in training managers on building effective conversations around mental resilience and also in terms of creating positive workplace through several role plays, focus group discussions, group activities. And this actually saw a huge impact on how employees felt psychologically safe at work. Now, there are several tools that help in terms of managing such distressing emotions. And one such tool is CBT, cognitive and behavioral therapy, which provides strong empirical support for treating mood, sleep, and several anxiety related disorders. Hence, at TechM, what we feel is that we focus on building employee inclusive wellness frameworks. And this is to increase the relevance in terms of wellness, create a positive impact, and this directly improves employee well being.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. In terms of wellness programs at TechM, Do you think we are doing enough, and what are we doing to bring out some of the things that we heard from Manish and Mahesh in terms of what clients are asking for? How are we institutionalizing it? If you can spend a couple of minutes on that, that will be great.
Surely, surely. So, at Techim, what we have built is in-house capabilities around connected and empathetic well-being ecosystem, and this is basis collaborating with various wellness experts and our employees. Now, there are several programs like Employee Assistance Program, which provides in counseling, and in specifically we talk about this case. We provide counseling in terms of drawing boundaries, cutting the negative thought loop. It could be about self improvement, about building resilience. Now, moving on to the culture that we try to promote, our culture promotes making mental health a habit by encouraging our folks to take a 10-minute refresher with an instructor led visual aid and attending wellness sessions. It could be also interacting with local wellness champions, using several self assessment tools. In our case, we use in pulse checks to assess our own stress levels. And there are several modern tools that we use for psychometric evaluations like MBTI, DISC, API, and more. And we also have tied up with personalized learning platforms like Harvard Spark or edX or Udemy, and also work with our people care managers. So it's a whole gamut if you see. And to quote in an example, very recently, uh, there were employees of ours who were based out of Europe and had experienced issues from reading and summarizing disturbing news around the ongoing Ukrainian and Russian conflict. And it became very necessary for us to provide mental and emotional health support so that they feel psychologically safe. And that is the time when we reinforced the EAP program. We extended counseling support to employees, family members, their partners, and they started taking in periodic psychological evaluations. Now, what happened was parallelly, we were also restructuring their daily routine and extended them with more number of breaks, with leaves, and this is merely for so that they don't feel burnt out. Now, uh, basis all of these steps that we took, we received positive feedback from our employees, and they actually came back saying that they were able to manage their emotions and stress better. And as a ripple effect, even our client was very well satisfied. So hence I feel that employee wellness is a huge enabler in terms of bringing in more and more psychological safety at work, and it also enables business continuity in various forms.
All right. Thank you, Meghna, for that. Meghna is the wellness officer, and the role itself defines the commitment that Techem brings from a wellness perspective for its employees, and the way that it is institutionalized uh, gives us a lot of satisfaction that we're part of this journey. Moving on to Bharat. Bharat, in terms of capability building, what are some of the things that needs to be done, and what are we doing in order to build, institutionalize some of these things in our operations, in the way that we go about delivering this for our clients? If you can throw some light on that, Bharat.
Sure. Thanks, Satish. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants in this session. Uh, One of the disadvantages of going last is, you'll have to synthesize everything that our colleagues have been saying so far and still continue to, give some powerful insight. So let me give this a shot, and let me start with, uh, if you look at, at Tech Mahindra, the philosophy that we breathe has been very simplistically but very powerfully and profoundly indicated in three words, which is wellness before business. Right now, I choose to interpret this in two ways. Right, one, which is the very straightforward and very clear message, which is, uh, before we do anything else, we need to ensure that the entire workforce of 130, 140,000 people that we have across the planet are fully trusting of us as an organization, feel safe to give their best every day they come into work, and feel empowered, feel secure, right? And that goes without saying. And if you can't create that environment, you can't do business, period, right? So that's uh, the straightforward sort of message that comes out of those three words. But the other way in which I would also look at it is wellness and business are actually two sides of the same coin, right? And if you look at some of the statistics that are emerging after, especially after the pandemic, they're staggering, almost unbelievable, right? Uh, the World Health Organization is saying that 20% of the workforce across industries across the planet has some mental health issue or the other, right? More than 50% don't feel financially secure. More than 70% have some form of physical ailment, and 85%, and that's staggering. In fact, I actually went through this data again and again. 85% of workforce across industries is disengaged today, right? So what that means is that it's not just us as as Tech Mahindra, but pretty much every company in every industry that we do business with is facing the same set of challenges. Which means what I do as a business has to impact the wellness of my customers' employees and my customers' employees, right? And therefore, when I say wellness and business are two sides of the same coin, I'm actually saying, look, am I looking at employees in the context of Tech Mahindra, or am I saying, look, people who are working for wherever they are in my client organizations also need to feel motivated, need to feel empowered, right? And therefore, my customers need to feel engaged. In fact, interestingly, we had a fireside chat with um, the chief, customer service officer for the consumer business of one of the largest telco companies on the planet, and a big client of Tech Mahindra. And it was a very powerful conversation where she started off by saying that, look, before I decide to do whatever I need to in terms of improving customer satisfaction, shaving off the number of calls that come into my customer experience centers, I need to figure out how happy my employees are. And I need to figure out what I need to do to improve satisfaction across my employees and my workforce, right? And she managed 50, 60% of the total workforce of the organization. Now, for someone at her level and for a company of that size to say this as the front and center thing that she would like to do was profound, right? And I think therefore what it means is, Mahesh and Manish both spoke about some of our service offerings, the human in the loop services that we do, around content review, content moderation, how do we manage and curate egregious content. And I think all of that eventually has to translate into uh, you know how are we dealing with the reputation of the brands that we work for, and how are we ensuring that the people that work for those brands as well as the people that transact with those brands are able to feel trusted and safe around them, right? And as I sort of broad base that, look, we work with one of the world's largest hyperscalers, an iconic brand. We do some CSAM work for them. We do work for a leading Q&A platform where we actually assess, monitor uh, their brand reputation and figure out ways and means in which through which we can actually improve their user base and loyalty, right? And as we go about doing all of that, what I'm looking at is, look, everything that we're doing in this space eventually navigates towards wellness itself as a service, right? And that to me is the single biggest capability and service offering that I would like to build from a Tech Mahindra perspective. And that takes many shades, right? For example, Bond, which is one of our portfolio companies, they are spearheading the experience design services for the organization. And when you talk to some of our colleagues in this space, the work that's happening around experience design services itself is fascinating, right? Because at the end of the day, it is about making people who transact with our customers happy, right? And feel good about the way they engage with these brands, right? And therefore, it comes back to my first point, which is Our service offerings, wellness as a service, is built around looking at our employees, but then looking at employees as stakeholders across our entire ecosystem, whether it's our customers or their customers, right? And to this, if I add this one big word, which now is fast replacing strategy as the most used or most abused word, metaverse, right? And if you look at some of the evolution we're going to see in metaverse, it's going to fundamentally alter the way uh, we, our stakeholders, our customers, our service providers, our entire value chain, you know, presents itself, interacts, transacts, conducts business, learns, unlearns in a completely new ecosystem, right? And that's going to present a whole set of challenges around wellness, a whole set of challenges around, therefore, what we as Tech Mahindra should be doing to address that space, right? So, long story short, Satish, for me, wellness as a service and everything that revolves around that is going to be a powerful value prop that I would like us as Tech Mahindra to focus on and create for our ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Bharat. Uh, yeah, people have started posting questions. Before I take some of that, I had one other question for Manish. Manish, in terms of when you talk about egregious and non-egregious, how different should the wellness program differentiate between what they're exposed to and not exposed to? Is there a difference? If yes, what kind of difference do you see?
So wellness program should be there irrespective of the content type. And then what we do is we add on additional offerings for egregious kind of content, because so the kind of work we do today covers a lot of materials which really is not material that you might want to see. That is not just uncomfortable, it is disturbing, it is horribly disturbing. But at the same time, we also do work in the moderation space that requires wellness, but of a different nature. So I think what we are doing today is providing wellness programs across the base, and to some folks we provide a little bit more support because of the nature of work that they are involved in. There are some things that we have in place, like 6-hour days for 8-hour pays kind of stuff, where they're working for 6 hours a day, not 8 hours. We have morale events. We have a game room so they can de-stress, come on out. We have out of office events that happen every now and then. We have one-on-one get-togethers between them, with their leads. If necessary, they can schedule time independently with their counselors. That's an option that they have available. If nothing works, they can always reach out to HR. They can find out what's going on. But yeah, we add on more. But today we are providing all of those services to everybody. But some people will require more than others.
Right.
So the set of services is good. I wanted to go back to a point that Bharat made about wellness as a service. So there is an institute called the Global Wellness Initiative. The Global Wellness Initiative, and this is what I was saying, is doing good actually is profitable. Global Wellness Initiative says that the wellness business, and this covers everything from mental health to hospitality and everything else, the global wellness business in 2020 was $4.4 trillion. In 2025,
Wow.
it's supposed to be $7 trillion. So there is money to be made in being good about how we treat our employees. So it is a good space.
That's a great point. Bharat, here is a curveball for you. We are speaking about more times being spent off the floor. How do you measure it and how do you quantify this for business benefit to a client?
Look, actually, and I'll again answer that differently, Satish. When you get a curveball, it's always good to respond with another curveball, right? I think, at the end of the day, you know, what are you going to measure, right? I think it's important for us to realize that there's no need to overcomplicate this. At the end of the day, what are you measuring? Every organization today measures employee satisfaction in some form or fashion, right? Now, here is the twist to it, right? You've got an offering called trust and safety, right? Now, what is trust and safety? Today, a typical working professional spends a lion's share of maybe 20, 30, 40 years at work with colleagues in some form or fashion, whether physically or otherwise, right? Nowadays, more otherwise than physically. Now, if you were to correlate that with a family, right? In a family, you have trials, you have tribulations, you have happy moments, you have sad moments, you have fights, you kiss and make up, everything happens. But the family is still intact because of two metrics. One, there is an underlying bond of trust within the family members. And secondly, and more importantly, there is safety. Safety in that, you have that umbrella of a set of people who are going to, have your back at all points in time. So what I would do in an organization is eventually an organization is going to have all of those complications, especially as you become larger, right? The same set of trials, tribulations, fights, issues today, remote working, in office working, work from
Hybrid.
home, all of that, right? So I think the metrics we should try and measure, and this is not from an offering perspective, but for what that metric stands is trust and safety. So what I would do is I would look at ways and means in which I could measure what my employees have to say about how trustworthy we are as an organization and how much of a safety net are we able to provide our employees,
Right.
where they feel secure about what they do, where they feel secure about raising concerns, where they feel secure about voicing their opinions without being judged for it, right? So I think in the way in which we measure, and we're as an organization we're doing that as well, but in the way in which we measure employee satisfaction, we should include parameters that measure trust and measure safety and give that a significant weightage towards the overall satisfaction metric, right? And to me, that will automatically link to an outcome metric, which is customer satisfaction. You can look at various ways to correlate it. But and therefore, when you call an offering trust and safety, there is a lot of depth and meaning to each of those words, trust and safety.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bharat. That was very lucid. Uh, we have a question from one of the participants, Jignesh. How the question is for you, Meghna. How are you doing wellness programs? Is it like a batch-wise workshop, or is it a holistic program for all employees? How do you ensure that the most introvert person in the company is doing well with this program?
Right. So what we believe in TechM is that wellness is basically to each its own. So giving people a chance to curate their own wellness basis their needs is important. Now, all our wellness initiatives, I mean, focusing on the first part wherein they asked about if we're doing in batch wise workshops or so, it's not just limited to workshops. It's about creating in more awareness. It's about training them to manage their own emotions. And this can be on a one-on-one basis. This can be on a group coaching basis, training or awareness. It is pretty much holistic in nature from a wellness standpoint. We try to target all aspects of wellness because, as Manish also said, that uh, in some way every individual expects that each and every aspect of the wellness is taken care of. Now, talking about how we also create a space for people who might be reserved in terms of expressing their wellness needs, what we do is that, see, we have technology with us to create in that space for us to have one-on-one conversations with experts with no judgment. So, for instance, when I spoke about the employee assistance program, we have this program which is 100% confidential in nature. It's between the employee and the counselor. So that sort of a comfort and a free space has to be given to associates to feel that they are constantly in a psychologically safe environment. and also give them a space to explore their own wellness needs. So I think that is something that we focus on consistently, and this has to be a more journey based format rather than just having one touch point at a time. And while we talk about technology, we also have the human factor in TechM that we encourage a lot, and this is done via our wellness champions. It's actually a huge network of uh, employees at TechM who actually connect with their respective teams, their respective locations very regularly. So it also gives them even the introvert folks a comfort zone to open up and be vocal about their wellness concerns.
All right, Meghna, thank you so much for that. In one of the interactions, I had with the team in Europe, which is going through some of the, having to manage the Ukraine war-related news. What was very, very interesting was the government is also doing their bit, realizing what people are going through. And the case in point being, in one of the countries in Europe, they have a program where they support people, for any kind of questions that they have when they come to that country, including if you didn't know how to file your taxes, you could call them. You could be stressed completely. So, but you could call them and take help. They call it financial wellness. And the interesting part was their family members are also covered by the same program. So it's not just the individual who is covered, but anybody from the family can call the number and they are put to the right person to talk to them about. And it's that very, very minimal charges, which was very, very interesting to note. All right. There is another question. Um how should we manage the situation when we learn that our team member is impacted after being exposed to egregious content? Manish, do you want to take that question?
It's a tough one because every individual is impacted separately and differently, and how it comes, a lot of it is dependent upon the background of the person, whether the person is single, whether the person is married, they have kids, they don't have kids. So there is a lot of complexity in terms of how do you manage it. There are people who are in this business who have been in this business forever because they like doing what they are doing, because it is a social driver. It is not so much about the work in the content moderation space. Requires both the company to have a commitment towards working in a space beyond margins, and it also requires the people who are involved in the space to work in the space for a variety of different reasons. It's a lot of satisfaction in this kind of work when there are stings done and you suddenly find out that you have got so many bad guys globally. There is a certain amount of satisfaction in doing that. And so some people are able to disassociate themselves from the work after the work is done. They come in the morning, they do the work until the work is done, they go back home and they're fine. They hang around with their kids, etc., and they're good. Some people, they are not able to disassociate that work at all. So there are religious aspects, there are personality aspects, there are environmental aspects. There's a lot of different things that come into play when a person does get affected. You'll have to understand all of those things and then start taking the low-hanging fruits and get that one out and the next one out and the next one out. So if a person is impacted, to your question, you have to have a very detailed conversation. I mean, and Meghna's team would essentially come into handy there. They'll have to sit down. They'll have to understand. It's not as easy as, okay, don't look at this content for some time, and then we'll come back to it next week. It could be very deep-seated things. It could be something that is coming from the back. It might not be related to the content moderation work that they have done. It could have been something that has happened to them earlier, and this has triggered it. So you have to spend a lot of time. The worst thing would be to tell them, go take a day off and come back tomorrow and do this work again.
Right.
Have the person completely disassociate, find out why this happened, and then work through the process of slowly getting them out. So that is how it is a complex process, Satish. It is not. It's not an easy answer, and it's not an easy solution that works for everybody. You have to really go through everything in detail and then come back.
And I think clients are empathetic to this.
Clients are very empathetic to it, Satish. Irrespective of the moderation work, when the whole pandemic started, one of the fears we had as an organization was, oh my God, how are we going to hit SLAs? How are we going to hit KPIs? Everybody's working from home. There is no oversight. People will not do what they're supposed to be doing because, well, they're not in the office. I'm not watching them. What will my clients say? They will pull out the projects. But you know what these 2 years have taught me personally, because I'm one of those guys who likes to come to work, who likes to meet people in person, that people can take personal responsibility, and they do the work without there being a stick. And not only that customers are empathetic. They are not hard-boiled entities that say, you got to do this ABC, and if you don't do it, you're out of here. No, they're not. They changed their own models. They said, it's okay. How are you guys doing? How are you guys coping? Is everybody okay? Nobody has died, I hope. Can you get to work? Can you not get to work? Do you have hardware? The SLAs and KPIs came later. All the questions, interestingly, Satish, that they asked were all wellness questions. We didn't classify it as a wellness discussion, but all the questions that they asked were wellness-related questions. Eventually coming and saying, okay, are you all right? Fine. Do you think these KPIs are fine or SLAs are okay? If these SLAs are not okay, it's okay. We will manage. So yes, customers have been very, very empathetic, and it is because of that we have been able to do what we have been doing over the last 2 years without that much of an impact at all.
In fact, Satish, if I may, the only other thing that I completely echo what Manish said, but the only other thing that could probably help address this situation is, over a period of time, like everything else, maybe there are certain early warning signals, and maybe Meghna can talk to these, but sometimes you have a sense of which employee is getting impacted with the exposure to egregious content, and maybe you can sort of lean into that employee, spend time with that person even before things really take a turn for the worse, right? And maybe there's a way in which we manage our teams, and we're doing a lot of that, right, in terms of rotating people, in terms of giving them that enough amount of off time from what they're doing. So that's, again, there's no silver bullet, but maybe there are certain early warning signals that we're tapping into today, and over a period of time you start to get better at it, right?
All right. Mahesh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Satish, loud and clear.
Okay. So the question, one more question that has come up is, you are supposed to be giving special allowances for these initiatives, right? What is the clients? How are clients reacting to that situation when you go and tell them that you need to give them special allowances, you need to take care of them, there's going to be money spent?
No, absolutely. That's a great question, right? So if you look at content moderation as a service line, it's evolving, right? I would say it's like 4-5 years in maturity. More and more content keeps coming in. It poses a lot of challenges for suppliers like us and also our clients. Now, what is happening in this journey is a lot of the best practices that's been followed is eventually becoming benchmarks, eventually becoming stated expectations. Now, one of those stated expectations is today clients are surprisingly touching base on, tell us what is your allowances that you're paying for content moderators. We haven't seen this in any of the BPO landscape, right? They know that as a company you have such practices, but today clients are insisting and they wanted to know what is that you're doing to the employees. It could be as simple as what Bharat alluded to. How are you managing stress levels at work? How are you managing stress levels when they go to home? Because they spend 2/3 of their time at home. And companies like us have figured out that if we have a practice, if we have a wellness practice, this covers the entire family. Now that gives a better efficacy in the way we're managing the whole operations. So, what are your wellness and well-being practices covering the whole aspects of self as well as family? It's become a stated expectation today. And second, another stated expectation is how are they being remunerated? Are you paying differential for people who are managing egregious content? If not, how are you treating them? Are they feeling a sense of purpose? Because think about it, right? Content moderation is all about sense of purpose, like first responders, right? How does an employee who's dealing with moderation realizes that what I'm doing is not just for money, but it's more than that. It's beyond that because I am serving the society by stopping this content's going viral. So how are you dealing with that? So those are becoming stated expectations today, right? So in fact, I recently underwent a plethora of RFI, if I will, which basically articulates 25 to 30 questions just on remuneration. Very, very interesting. And that's where the industry is evolving because clients are equally concerned about how the employees are being treated because the wellness brings efficacy in the operations, like what Manish alluded to.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Mahesh. Um, there's a question from Sirish. Bharat, this is for you. Uh, how does recognition or alternately curtailing, manipulating credit pose an impact to employees' well-being? I mean, this is like has been there for ages together, but in today's world, what is the meaning it takes, and how does one manage that?
Look, I think it comes back to the same point I was making, right? Uh, as an organization, similar to a family again, right? Eventually, it boils down to trust, right? When you come into work, whether it's your coworker, whether it's the person you work for, or people who work for you, right? Is there a fundamental element of trust in that relationship, right? And when there is breach of trust or when there is breakage of trust, some of these issues around manipulating credit or not getting due recognition to where it belongs uh, is a natural outcome of a significant breach of trust, right? And therefore, um, you know what we are doing to create that environment of trust and create that environment of interdependence, where we know that, look, an outcome of anything that we do has to be influenced by more than one individual, right? Again, there's no silver bullet to it. Some organizations have managed this better than the others. A lot of this also goes down to the heritage of the organization. Very often, you know the founders or co-founders, what sort of philosophy did they espouse? Is this an organization that believes in creating wealth for the larger? So there are several proxies that indicate trust and that show how organizations build trust. And the more effective these proxies are, the more people feel trusted coming in, which means you can never eliminate these incidents, but hopefully you'll see fewer and far between of them, right? So again, I can't think of a silver bullet response to this, but the only way to deal with this is create more and more trust in the ecosystem and create more and more sharing of success, right? As opposed to attributing success to one or few individuals, right?
Right. Another interesting take on wellness, Meghna, this is for you. From a cultural perspective, there are several cultures where people don't express themselves. They come to work, they do all the wellness programs that you ask them to do. And at the end of the day, if you ask them, I'm doing fine. But is there a way to identify uh, this behavior that I am not well, but I can't express it? Maybe during your recruitment stage or during any of your any measurements that you do, is it possible to find this out? And what are some of the things that you do for this?
Definitely, I think there are several tools that can be used, like certain psychometric tools, and this can become a part and parcel of the whole employee life cycle, starting from hiring to exit. And I feel that these psychometric tools help in a very clear evaluation of whether the person is suited for the role or not, what is their EQ, and also help in making better judgments for the managers who would be hiring them for the role. So in many ways these tools do help, but once the person is on job, they're working on the role, uh, there could be certain strategies that could be put in place in terms of understanding what kind of responses they give while they probably view such content, and they're exposed to this sort of a content. Is there an impact on the psychological well-being? So this can be definitely tracked through a lot of these tools, like mood tracking tools, or there are chatbots which are CBT trained, which interact with individuals to understand if the mood of the individual is good or not. And for instance, I recently also uh, got to know about this example from a partner. They said that at night, before sleeping, there were many people who were reaching out to the chatbot, which is CBT trained, on sleep therapy or on sleep related podcasts. Now this is basically because a lot of them are actually facing insomnia, and the chatbot is able to understand this, provide and correct inputs, and also correct the behavior. So there are several tools in place. It's also dependent on how you use it.
Fantastic. Uh, in some sense, what I hear is technology has quietly helped these people, even though they are introverts and even though they're not expressing it. And all the chatbots and all that is being developed certainly has a deeper meaning for those people because it's completely anonymous. All right. Uh, Okay, so I think we are coming to the end of this session. Thank you so much for an engaging discussion. And thank you, participants, for your various questions. I would like to thank everybody for being here and wanted to leave you with some of the things that we discussed today. Uh, you know, it's very clear that employee wellness is the need of the hour. Take care of your employee, they take care of your clients, right? uh, Content moderators who do a terrific job of protecting kids and unsuspecting people stay safe online. They also need consistent support to stay resilient because they're doing excellent work. They're doing work that is required by the society. So it's absolutely important to, give them all the support that they need from every organization. Um, and I think from a client's perspective, especially the social media giants, they have invested heavily in wellness, right? But they look to service providers like what Manish was alluding to, like what Mahesh was alluding to. What are you doing? What kind of budgets do you have? What kind of wellness programs do you have? So that what they look at it is, how do I retain talent? How do I attract fresh talent? Because this space requires a lot of talent that's willing to apply themselves for the greater good as well. And then I'll go back to where we started as the last point. Navigating the VUCA world has become tricky, but business priorities around profitability, customer satisfaction directly correlates with employee satisfaction, right? So it's safe to conclude that the lessons learned during the pandemic and the resolve of several CEOs who have put their might behind some of these initiatives should not go to waste. And I think companies will do well to build a robust wellness strategy that is bound to make their organization stronger. And obviously, it's also going to lead to employee satisfaction, client satisfaction, and so on and so forth. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.